It is Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, and welcome to Global History. So, we are now on to our seventh lesson of Unit 1, which is historical argument. And our objective for today is I can describe what is a historical argument and I can identify the components of a historical argument. So, let's first understand, historical argument. What does it even mean? What argument, or to construct an argument, which is a verb. It's an action. You're doing something. And it's the act of explaining what happened in the past using relevant evidence from primary and or secondary sources. We know that we need to support a claim with evidence, so let's sort of think about this. So, to construct an argument or a claim, you must use evidence from primary and secondary sources that support what you're trying to convince your reader to believe, right? So I'm thinking of like construct as an actual construction. So to actually build your argument, you need secondary sources and you need primary sources that are going to support whatever it is that you're trying to build. Not just random stuff, important stuff, right? And after you state your argument or your claim and you select that relevant evidence coming from primary and secondary sources, you need to make it nice, right? So in a building, once they finish the outside, they do the inside, which we're going to think of that as, as when you go and you analyze, reason, and explain your evidence to connect it back to your claim. So after you build your argument, after you have all the rooms inside, which we could think of as our evidence, you then need to decorate it, right? So decorating it is when you go in and you analyze, reason, and explain your evidence to connect it back to whatever your argument is, right? If the building looks a certain way on the outside, if your house looks a certain way on the outside, probably the interior is going to look similar. It's going to be connected. It's going to be a similar style. Or if we're really, crazy about design, that's in theory what we would do. So I'm trying to, break it down for you. But the building and sort of the outside is the argument. That's your claim. That's the biggest part. That's the broadest part. And then the rooms of this construction, of this building, we can think of as our evidence. And then, a room is just a room, or evidence is just evidence until we actually make it ours. So that's where the analysis, reason, and explanation come in. Anyone can put a quote in, anyone can say, this is this, but what we need to do as good historians is actually analyze it and connect it back to what it is that we're trying to convince our reader. And usually the analysis, reason, and explanation is where we really help our reader understand and be on the same page as us, which only makes our claim and argument stronger. So then let's be really clear. A historical argument is not supported by opinions. It is not made up on the spot. And it's not won by the person who can yell the loudest. So then what is a historical argument? It's supported by information from reliable sources, primary and secondary sources, and it's researched and carefully put together. So this isn't just something that you're making up as you go along. It's thoughtful. It's well thought out. And again, that's where you can really see the thoughtfulness in the analysis, reason, and explanation of whatever evidence. When you understand that evidence, the primary and secondary source, you can really create a strong historical argument. Historians construct arguments through claims, evidence, and analysis, reasoning, and explanation. So let's actually understand these three parts of a historical argument. The first component is a claim, which is an opinion supported by evidence. In a historical argument, the claim is the answer to your research question or response to the prompt you are addressing. It should be based on the evidence you have collected. Evidence, information that can be used for a specific purpose. And in this case, in a historical argument, evidence is information that supports your claim. We collect evidence from primary and secondary sources like text, videos, knowledge of people to support our reasons, and so on. So you don't have a claim if you don't have good evidence, because a claim cannot be supported without good evidence. And then evidence really needs to be supported by your analysis, reasoning, and explanation, which are really those statements that make something understandable. In a historical argument, the analysis, reasoning, explanation states why the evidence supports the claim. And just one other little note, in a historical argument, we do not use I statements. Why do we have to analyze, reason, and explain? Why can't I just quote or paraphrase, or the paraphrase I use just do the trick? Why doesn't that just work? This is where you get to show your understanding and connect your evidence back to your claim. Your reader may not understand the evidence, so that's why you analyze, reason, and explain. Also, we want your original thoughts in your historical argument. Again, the analyze, reasoning, and explaining part is where you show your understanding and where you can connect and make it very clear to your reader. So what we're going to actually do today is we're going to look at two different sources. We're going to look at a source that argues for voter ID laws and one that argues against voter ID laws. We're going to identify the author's claim or argument. We're going to identify a piece of evidence, and we're going to identify a piece of reasoning, analysis, or explanation for each of the sources. And then at the end, we're going to decide which author, did a better job. Basically, we're going to decide who had a better historical argument. So you're going to pick who did a better job with their claim, with their evidence, and with their reasoning and explanation. And that last question, question number 6, it's actually question number 8. Question number 8 is an opinion question, so that is based off of your opinion. So we are all going to get started on step 1, which is where you're going to either watch and listen or read to yourself. In the watch and listen, I do a little bit of explaining, so you might want to do that instead, and we have 7 minutes to get started. So go ahead and get started on step 1.